This was a tracing case involving separate property where the wife had a trust account that was set up before the marriage, but that account had earned income during the marriage, and we had to go back and trace back to 2009, 2 different trust accounts, every single transaction, and during that time frame, and the husband was trying to claim that that was all marital. That was a 3-day trial. It was scheduled day 1 of trial, so I was on in the afternoon. After about 3.5 hours, I think I frustrated the heck out of the opposing counsel because he couldn't get me to tell him what he wanted me to tell him because the facts were the facts. And so I never had anybody come up and utilize marbles to try to articulate a case. I thought it was very creative. So this divorce attorney comes up and says, "Miss James, here's a bag of marbles." His whole theory was that everything was commingled and there was no way that I could determine with certainty what was marital or what was premarital. Based on how the statements were presented, they identified things and I could trace every transaction. I absolutely could. He says, "Well, here's some marbles," and they're all blue marbles. He had me take out a couple of marbles. And he says, "Take 5 out and put them over here. That's your dividends." Okay. Take 3 out and put them over here. That's your interest. Okay. Take so much out and put them over here, and that's your principal. Now put them all back in a cup. So I did. "Can you tell the difference?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And he kind of looked at me funny. And of course, I was being a little snarky at that point. And I said, "Well, first in, first out." Because that was how we took the approach in my case, was first in, first out. So it actually helped me to bolster that point. The judge kind of smirked a little bit. And I said, just because they're all the same color doesn't mean you can't identify them. You can. You just have to have a methodology and be able to do so. So then the attorney on our side was pacing back and forth, objecting the whole time. He finally got his chance to ask me on rebuttal cross. He grabbed his bag of peanut M&Ms off the table, put them on the counter. He says, "Miss James," he says, "I want you to separate out 3 green M&Ms. So I plucked those out. "Now take out 5 of the yellow," and I did that. So we went through this exercise. He says, "If you put them all together, can you tell what's what?" I said, "Absolutely." So it was just kind of humorous, but it was a case where the attorneys used a little creativity. And I had to pivot because you never know what's going to get thrown at you when you're on the stand. And then at the end of that, the judge called the attorneys into chamber and says, "Okay, you need to settle this case." And my client actually was able to keep the majority of her earnings. So that was a fun case to work.